So this has been a trend lately. There's a big crash before the beginning of the race, and they ended up having to redirect the start. Instead of going to the left around the flag, we had to go straight into the right. Some kid got clobbered and had to get airlifted out. I heard he was in critical care, but is doing better. I hope he recovers. This is Mideast round 15 at Walnut Grove in Hickory Grove, South Carolina. This track was a lot of fun. You see, I take off there and get the whole shot. I kept the lead for most of the first lap and then had a big mistake and lost it, and ended up finishing the race like 6th out of 11, I think is where it was. Not a terrible finish for what happened, but I could have finished better. I just had a mechanical issue and then had a big mistake I made. The course was a lot of fun. It was a good mixture of really fast sand, flat track kind of stuff, and then field sections, and then the woods were just spectacular. There was a lot of water in some spots, but it wasn't like, mud bog. It was just, it was moisture in the ground, and it made some spots be a little more slick than others. It was where you would expect it. It was nothing surprising. This section was cool. It was a wider part of the trail, but you couldn't really get going as fast in the first couple laps because it was this like top layer of grease mud all over a lattice of spider roots. So the roots were super slippery, and if you weren't real particular about where your front wheel went, you just slide out. And so I didn't feel like I could carry as much speed until later in the race, and then later on in the race it was a non-issue. It was just hammer down and then negotiate everything the way you would normally negotiate a wide woods trail. And this whole property is like a mud bog farmland thing, but they have these weird terraced sections, so there's these drop downs everywhere. And even in the field sections that you run up and down, these are like jumps going up and jumps coming down. A really odd feature of a course. You can see there's sections where you come up some of those terraces, and there's a tree right next to the edge, and as the race went on, those edges got more and more defined, and there was more and more roots. And that's what happened there. Is I hit one of those roots that was starting to get exposed, even just on the first lap, and it was shooting me toward that tree on the left. That was the most challenging part of this section, was those big sections of roots. The big thing about this video is that I see in my riding all the stuff I've been talking about is starting to actually take effect. I've passed better now. I don't let people really dictate my riding as much. I still get caught in that, especially later in the race, but it's nice to see that there's progress been made in the way I ride, and it's fun to see it kind of go through the videos where I talk about, hey, I need to do this thing, and start working on it, and hey, I need to do this thing next, and I start working on that. I can tell though I'm ready to move up, because I'm getting really frustrated getting behind long groups of people where it's like 3, 4, 5 people stack up in one group, and then you can't really get around them. This section of trail was the downhill into probably the muddiest part of the trail, and then this downhill section here was really, really thick mud. It was like natural erosion on the trail, but then as you drop down further into the trail, it just got a little more and more sloppy. It wasn't unnegotiable by any stretch. It was just the first couple laps, it was still so slick and had so much moisture in it that the ruts wouldn't really develop, so you kind of just pin it and slog around in the mud until you find traction. We get to the hill climb on the first lap, and there's some guy sliding sideways down it. I skip over to another lap and I shoot up the hill climb. It wasn't that bad of a hill. It was just kind of, it had a good approach, and then it was short and steep. It was questionable whether it was better to go up the hill climb or around the workaround. And this is the workaround. It was, I don't know, you could do either and not really lose any spots, especially if everybody you were chasing kind of did it. But after I saw the hill climb and every time I could get a good run at it, I did it, which was for the rest of the race for me. I don't know, it was pick one and you're going to do okay either way. This is what I'm talking about, where everybody kind of packs up. I start making moves on people, but there's like 4 guys, and they all kind of fall in line with each other. And I get that. I used to do it, and I still do it a little bit, where you let other people dictate how you ride. They kind of autopilot. Your brain goes into this, oh, I can just follow this guy and follow his line. But really, if you're catching people, you can start moving past them, like I've said before. So that's what I start picking people off in these groups. Just, sometimes it's okay to take a little risky line, or sometimes it's better just to be a little more aggressive, especially if it's going to keep progressing you in a race. And Gary, the guy who usually beats me and him were talking about it. And it seems like if we could get around lappers, we could, do really well for this class. So I think we've been ready to move up, but now it's just really apparent. You can see in this section I've made up 4 positions, or made it past 4 other riders, just being able to negotiate the trail and make good decisions and not let them dictate how I'm riding. So this was another section of fast sand. It was like sand and mud mixed together, but it was mostly sand, and it got whooped out like sand gets. It just turns into these undulating 3-foot deep whoops for however long this part of the trail was. And it was fun. I like these kind of trails. I like whoops like this. But after my big mechanical failure was that I broke my foot peg off. So the rest of the race, after the first lap, I have to ride with 1 foot peg. And that's really difficult to ride sand with 1 foot peg, especially if you're riding through sand whoops, or the field sections like I was talking about that turn into these jumps. You just got nowhere to put your foot, and you just kind of hold on for dear life and hope you can negotiate it well enough. And I never hit the ground other than the first time where I broke my foot peg. So I guess I did okay negotiating the trail. It was just a struggle, and like my right leg that did all the work for the rest of the race was really suffering after that. My knee, ankle, and quad were killing me for a couple days after the race, all from having to support me the whole way through these big rutted whoop sections. I'm not going to leave a lot of the field sections in there. They are exactly what you'd expect of a field. You go up and down these sections, like up 1 and down 1. You do it about 5 times, and then you're into the woods again. Like I said, the woods in this race were spectacular. The amount of moisture in the ground was perfect, so later on in the race it got so beat in that the ruts were really well developed, and then you could really have a good designated trail to ride. And it was just not as good of conditions as you could expect, but they were really good conditions, and the trail had good flow, and it was just good woods. I was really appreciative of it. So I make a mistake there. If you looked over to the left, there was blue tape. And I talked to a couple other people, and they said they made the same mistake too. It didn't cut out much of the trail. That was part of what my big issue was later on in the race, is trail marking. And while that had blue tape, somebody had either knocked it down or it wasn't super visible. And then later on, I'll show you where I make a big mistake, and it's due to the issue is that it's trail marking that is not as designated as it should be. It's not as definite of a direction to go when there's not much visible trail. So this is my big crash. This is a creek section. It's going to be slick. I don't know why I got on the gas when I did. I was trying to get a launch for this hill that's up behind here. Just didn't happen, so I spun out, slid, and I guess that's what broke my foot peg. It seems like a real not issue crash. Like my bike never turned off. I just got up and took off again. But you'll see up here I look down, and that's where I start noticing my foot peg feels weird. It felt like it was stuck either down or up, and I couldn't get it to reset. And then a little bit later on I just snap it all the way off, and it ends up being me standing on my frame, essentially trying to keep my feet in one place for the rest of the race. So I always talk about Gary. That's Gary. He just got around me, races the same class as me. Dude's fast, and I always try to keep him in sight. I try to make moves to keep up with him. This is where I see my aggression. I get to see my ability, learning how to pass and learning how to make good decisions with not letting other people dictate my riding comes in is just by doing that little hotline into a pass. I was determined to not let him be in front of me for as long as possible, and it doesn't last as long as I would like, but I feel like if me and him could have kept that momentum going, we would have had a really good battle on our hands, because I think we would have been able to keep together and then, battle back and forth the whole way through, which would have been a lot of fun for the race. Another part of not letting people dictate, I look around that guy, get to see that there's going to be an opening, and you got to capitalize when you can, especially when I'm mildly panicking and needing to escape Gary as fast as I can. It'll be fun next year when we move up to be able to race with less traffic in the race. We'll be the slow guys, so it'll be fun to be able to just worry about riding and not worry about other people. Me checking my foot peg again, I'm still feeling weird. Okay, so this is where the big mistake happens. You go past the checkpoint, you come down this new section of wood single track, and as you come down the hill, the trail just kind of disappears. There are arrows here, and it looks like the trail goes straight. There's a rider down there too, but what really happens is the trail goes to the left. And as I go past these trees, you'll see that there's not really any indication that you'd go left. You just kind of peter out into the woods. And I guess Gary sees the trail, and what I should have done is turned around and followed him. But I don't know why I decided I was going to follow this guy. And what ended up happening is I ended up backtracking for about a quarter mile of the trail.
Visible down here. I got turned around. I've run this section twice now on my first lap. Yeah. You down this bottom of this hill, you can't tell where the fuck to go.
Okay. So I tell him that, and I was a little flustered, so my wording was a little more aggressive than it needed to be, talking to, I don't know how old he is, 16, 17, whatever year old kid. But either way, they came back later and marked this trail, really showed where it went. You can see there's not really any indication where the trail goes. So I made a big mistake. I should have been able to follow the trail better. But there's some times where the Mideast trail layout people seem to, miss the mark just a tiny bit, and sometimes it can make a big mistake. It's not the first time it's happened, so it's something to watch out for and something I need to pay better attention to. But it's a shame that it happened, because I knew once it happened I wasn't going to be able to make up any of that time, because anybody that I was going to catch up to, fourth or fifth was going to be so far ahead of me that I was not going to be able to really reel him back in. But I tried my hardest, even though I haven't, like I've said, only one foot peg. So this is the thing I don't get. People get bottlenecked and then they all just cram up into each other. I've said it before, and I mean it every time I say it, I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep going. There's always a way around. Within the rules, if you can do it, but there's always a way around. This is the same thing. I think the rules say you can be within 20 feet of the trail, and I'm within the rules, and there's no reason I need to stay sitting behind everybody waiting for somebody to get a clear shot at the trail. Keep going. It's a race, not a trail ride. So you can complete all those sections of the woods, which were really, really good, and then you're back out into the fields for the last mile or so into scoring. The fields were, it's just more of the same. You drop off the terraces, and it's just really fast into a section of switchbacks. I left this in here so you can see there's the ambulance and there's the helicopter. That's where they were airlifting that kid off. And I knew it was serious in the first part, but it really hit you there how serious it was. There's my foot peg completely gone. You can see it's just not there anymore. I go back around and you see Robert again. He yells something, like it's not worth getting hurt or something like that, because this is the end of the season. You know, there's no reason that I need to go. I'm already really locked in for 3rd overall in Vet C, so there's not really any reason for me to push as hard or like risk getting hurt just to finish the season. I could have pulled off and not finished, and you know, still not not change anything. But I always want to finish a race. I hate pulling off. Alright, so that's it. It was a great race. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, finished 6th out of 11 in Vet C. Next one is round 16, the last round for Mideast at Airport in Hickory, North Carolina. See you there. Peace.